Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Dhyanamulam Gururmurti, Pujamulam Gururpadam, Mantramulam Gururvakyam, Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. I'm Pradeep. I'm back again. And today I want to talk about scriptures. Indian scriptures, to be more specific. The Indian scriptures are the most ancient, the oldest body of wisdom that exists on this planet. Everything that is to be known about humanity, about humankind, about human beings, about life itself in the universe, not just on this planet, but in the entire Brahmand, the entire universe, is known in the Indian wisdom through the Indian scriptures. These are ancient books that are thousands and thousands of years old. And these books were ultimately written, transcribed, originally on tree leaves, on palm leaves, so that they could survive, and ultimately in the form of proper books. But prior to them being transcribed on palm leaves, they were all oral wisdom that was revealed to our saints and sages and masters and gurus and teachers who spent their entire lifetime doing sadhana, penance, and allowing themselves to connect to that source itself, consciousness, the supreme being, from which they got the wisdom, through which the wisdom revealed itself in different ways and forms through mantras, shlokas. As I've said earlier in another recording, Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. Sanskrit is a language of gods. And that was the language which I've said is really in the form of vibrations, through which this revelation would come into the beings of these sages and masters and teachers. And it passed on from generation to generation in the oral manner, by reciting, by chanting. People would know it by heart. They would know the meaning. It would vibrate inside them, this wisdom, this knowledge, until, as I said, it started being transcribed onto palm leaves and other forms, and eventually onto paper as we see it. So these scriptures of the Indian wisdom, they are so vast that in fact what we have available to us today is a minuscule remaining part of the entire body of wisdom. Without putting a number in terms of percentage, let's just say that a very small percentage of this wisdom is still available to us through these written books, through this written form. A very small percentage. So you can imagine how vast the entire wisdom is. There are still teachers and gurus and masters in India and even elsewhere, but primarily in India, who do not reveal themselves, but they are privy to a lot of this wisdom that is not available in the written form, that is not transcribed anywhere, but it is in a secret form. It is in that oral tradition that sits with them and is available to the true sadhak if he or she can find the soul who has access to this. Not only that, in fact, every human being has the potential, has the possibility to access this on his or her own by direct connection with the consciousness. Unfortunately, our modern life, the last few centuries, has become such that we are not able to achieve that level of connection with the consciousness to be able to, as we would say in modern parlance, download this wisdom from the source itself. There are lots of blockages, there's lots of compromises, there are lots of things that are interrupting. So it is becoming more and more difficult to download it directly from the source. So we have no choice but to depend upon whatever we have available to us in the form of books, in the form of satsangs, in the form of teachings from our gurus, teachers and masters. Just to give you a snapshot, I have been a voracious reader right from the beginning of my spiritual journey. In fact, I would call myself a Jnana yogi when I started on the spiritual path. I would read books. I was an avid reader even when I was young. Every kind of fiction, philosophy. I started with Bertrand Russell when I was in school, and I finished all of his books, all of his works before I had started college. So I was an avid reader. And when I started on the spiritual path, in fact, my initial beginning path was through the Jnana Yoga, through reading every kind of Indian scriptures, starting with the Gita, the Ashtavakra Gita, Osho's readings, Osho's teachings, Osho's writings, going on to Ramana Maharshi and go on and so on. It's vast, it's absolutely vast. And I would pick up some book, I would spend hours in the bookshop on the philosophy section, in the Sanskrit section, picking books, finding new books. Those days it was not available online. So I had to physically buy a book, and I love to have a book in my hand to be able to read, to be able to digest it and to make sense out of it. And it would always talk back to me in some way or the other. And that's how I built up my collection of books. What you see here is actually a small remainder of what has been collected over years, over the past 20-25 years. But eventually I scuttled it down to just Indian philosophy and Indian scriptures. I had a lot of other topics which I didn't want to accumulate over a period of time, so I brought it back to the really essential. I want to start with the Vedas. The Vedas are among the oldest forms of Indian wisdom, Indian scriptures. And I have something here which I received as a gift from my sister. And these are the Vedas in their original form. They are very sacred. And as you can see, there are the 4 books over here. And these were in my sister's in-laws family for a number of years. I don't know how long, how many number of years. But in typical modern living fashion, there was no place for them to be kept anywhere. They're pretty extensive, they're pretty heavy. And I was fortunate enough to receive it as a gift from my sister. And these are what we call Veda. Veda, as you know, is knowledge itself. And it's the foundation, in a way, of Indian philosophy, Indian wisdom. And I'm so fortunate to have read, not all of it, I don't claim to have read all of it, but most of it in different forms, in different excerpts and so on, that it becomes part of your spiritual journey where you get a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of inspiration and vibration just from chanting certain shlokas and chanting certain mantras from the Vedas itself. And then we go on to, before the Vedas, there were the Puranas. And the Puranas were more ritualistic, followed by the Vedas. And then came Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya changed everything. He turned it upside down. And he brought it into this confusing pattern of Indian wisdom, which was spread out in so many different ways. And then came and dawned Vedanta. And Vedanta took the form of Upanishads, of which the Bhagavad Gita is the most important aspect. And I think most people in India, at least, and some people abroad, outside India, relate to the Gita. They know what it's about. And I have a whole collection here of the Gita itself. There have been so many interpretations, so many writings, so many masters, teachers who have written about Gita. Gita is an interpretation. Gita is Krishna's poetry, but there are interpretations of what he was trying to say. This particular Bhagavad Gita that I'm pointing out here belonged to my mother, Ma, and she used to read this every day. She used to keep it besides her, and I was fortunate enough to then inherit it from her. And you can see there are different teachers, masters who have written on different things, Aurobindo, on yoga, on different aspects of Vedanta, on Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, Viveka Chudamani, the Osho's writings on different topics, Ramana Maharshi, and then of course the oldest, in fact older than Puranas and Vedas, is the whole text and the knowledge of Tantra. Tantra is the beginning and the end. Tantra is the essence of life itself. And there's a whole, in fact, most of the tantric knowledge is not even captured in writing anywhere. What you see here is probably such a small part of the tantric wisdom that it's really a shame that we don't have more information, more wisdom, more awareness of Tantra itself. So this has been the foundation, the scriptures of different kinds that took me along on my spiritual path slowly and gradually. So as I said, everything that is to be known, everything that is to be known from the beginning of time, if there was a beginning of time, to the end of time, is known in the Indian wisdom, through the Indian scriptures. Whether you talk about rocket technology, you talk about telecommunications, or computers, or aeroplanes, or nuclear missiles, or atom bomb, or any of the modern inventions or discoveries that you're more familiar with, there's a reference either directly or indirectly to all of these in the Indian scriptures. It's a matter of just finding it, researching it, understanding it, interpreting it. The problem is that Indian wisdom has stayed secret, and except for a few texts like the Gita, the Upanishads, and some aspects of Veda, and other commentaries and treatises on different scriptures, people are generally not respectful or caring enough or understanding enough of Indian scriptures. And the authorities have not done much to propagate it, to spread it out, or to make it more widely available in terms of or through the education system. So the younger generation, in fact, over the past the past generation or two or going forward, are totally oblivious to the richness of this body of knowledge that we have in India. And of course, people outside India are, for the most part, totally oblivious to this richness that exists on this planet in the form of the scriptures. They are the gold mine. They are more than a gold mine. They are full of gems. They are full of every aspect of living, every aspect of being, every aspect of spirituality is hidden in the scriptures, in their shlokas, in their mantras. I've actually been fortunate enough to have spent time with a couple of Western scholars and research teachers and assistants in Germany and in Lithuania, in Vilnius, who are doing a lot of research on the Indian scriptures through their knowledge and understanding of Sanskrit. Because that's the thing, that you have to have a good understanding and knowledge of Sanskrit, because most of the scriptures, in fact, almost all of the scriptures are written in Sanskrit or Pali. And the first important thing is to have a working knowledge, at least, or a scholarly knowledge, if you can, of Sanskrit. That makes the job so much easier. Because Sanskrit is such a language that is based on vibration. It is not, it is grammatically very complex, because every word, every phrase, every letter can be interpreted in multiple different ways. It is the context in which it is used, in the way the word is put together, And that same word can be parsed to mean something else altogether, or can be put in some other context to mean something else. So the reference to context in which the word is being used and the vibration it creates in that manner is what is most important. And that comes from a deep understanding of Sanskrit. And that deep understanding of Sanskrit helps to understand the richness, the wisdom that is hiding behind in these scriptures. And like I said, there are a few scholars, a few teachers, and a few masters abroad in Germany, in Lithuania. I also came across a few in the US, but primarily in Europe, who are doing this research and who are delving deeper and deeper and deeper. One of the problems I've experienced, and one of the observations I have had over the years, is that the West is more inclined to look for proof, for evidence. They like everything to come out of the laboratory in terms of empirical proof that this in fact is what it is. It can be proven, it can be shown that it works that way, or this is what it means. Indian wisdom does not work that way. Indian wisdom is based on experience. It is experiential. It has been there. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And that proof is in the fact that these scriptures and this wisdom has survived and has been there for thousands and thousands of years. One does not need proof. That is proof enough that they are still alive. You just have to make that effort. You just have to make that effort to reveal the potential, to reveal the richness of what is in there. It is not something that can be proved. It cannot something that can be shown in a demonstration in a laboratory. It is there for everyone to experience it in their own way. And each person is going to experience it in a different way, depending on how he or she is, or where he or she is along in the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey, in my opinion, is incomplete without access to these Indian scriptures, without access to this Indian wisdom. Because there is so much in there that helps us to live our lives today on a day-to-day basis. It's not about, again, giving up anything. It's about embracing. It's about understanding. It's about understanding what the Creator, the universe, Brahma, has given to us. This gift of life itself, and what it means, and how it reveals itself, how it blossoms, and how it enriches everyone around us. Every aspect of life, every aspect of relationship, every aspect of day-to-day spirit is hidden in the scriptures. So pick a book, whether it's Tantra, Upanishad, Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, Vedas, or some commentary, some treatise, some book written by someone, even the modern scriptures, what I call Osho's writings, Ramana Maharshi, Nisargat Maharaj, Krishnamurti. These are all masters, souls, who have spent hours and days and years really writing, and they have continued this great tradition of India of writing about their wisdom through the experience. And that experience is what helps us to take our experience further along. So Om Namah Shivaya once again, and I hope that all of you are able to access some scripture or the other, some wisdom, so that we can go further along on this spiritual journey. Thank you.